We're going to be kind of exploring martial arts through the lens of personal growth and self-discovery. And to guide us, we have an interview with Ken Gullete. He's a seasoned martial artist, has decades of experience across all sorts of styles.
What's fascinating about Ken is his journey to finding the real deal in martial arts. You know, he starts, like a lot of us, captivated by like those Bruce Lee films. He quickly realizes that there's just so much more depth to uncover beyond the flashy moves, you know?
Yeah.
And this kind of leads him on a quest for authentic instruction.
You want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
The chance of your being hurt by an atomic bomb is slight. You must know how to protect yourself.
That others don't even know exists.
Hi everybody. My name's Jason, and this is Built Different, the people of Tai Chi Chuan. With us today is my guest Ken Gullete, who has been around the Tai Chi and Kung Fu world for a hot minute. I've been seeing your name pop up here and there for a decade, if it's been a minute. I'm sure we have lots of fun things to talk about. I was just actually watching the video at the DAOI talk that you did with Chris Marshall and I can't remember the other gentleman's name.
Ronnie Yee.
Yeah, Ronnie Yee. Yeah. And I've just been, I've been brushing up on your material too since I was getting ready for this. So I looked and I just watched one of your online classes on silk reeling. So I think, I want to get into that a little bit. Some silk reeling would be nice to talk about, and all kinds of stuff. But I guess let me let you introduce yourself. What are the important parts about Mr. Ken Gullete?
Well, I started when I was inspired by Bruce Lee in 1973, and 20 years old, and started different styles at that point. Studied some what was called Shaolin Do, which was kind of a messed up version of Shaolin, and went into Taekwondo after that, and a little Tien Shan Pai Kung Fu in Cincinnati, and then moved out to Omaha and found the internal arts, and that's where I kind of settled in. Then in '98, I discovered Chen Tai Chi, and I changed over from Yang to Chen, and continued from there.
So wait, how long did you do Yang then?
It was over a decade.
Okay.
My teacher was Pete Starr out in Omaha, and he was big in the AAU Kung Fu championships. He organized those, and I competed in that in 1990, and that was interesting.
Yeah, and he said Shaolin Do. I didn't realize Shaolin Do was that old. I thought it was a more recent sort of innovation. I know that Bruce Ryder was somebody I'd interacted with a bit in the past who was into Shaolin Do for a while. I need to follow up with him and see if he's still doing that. But
well, in 1973, nobody knew anything, and
yeah,
there was a very well-known instructor in Lexington, Kentucky, and he had a big school. And one of my friends came in. I was working in a movie theater, and he came in and he said, "Kenny, you've got to see this guy. He can cut himself with a knife and not bleed. He can jump up and touch his feet on a basketball goal," which, if you're from Lexington, Kentucky, with the Kentucky Wildcats, that's pretty amazing. So I checked out of school, and after a few years realized it wasn't very good and moved on to another school.
yeah.
To get a brown belt.
Well, it's I guess anything that gets people out and active has got some worth to it. But whether it's all the same worth, I definitely would say that some is more better than others. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, back then and still, I guess people do make up their backgrounds, and yeah, we didn't have any ways to know. So, but every teacher, no matter how good or bad, points the way, and you can take that and go to your next step. It's all
Yeah,
a journey.
actually, that's an interesting thing too with the when you talk about that, the teachers pointing the way and like making up our backgrounds and whatnot. Um, I guess how, when people come and they come looking for a Tai Chi teacher, right? I think in some respects they're not necessarily looking for Tai Chi because they don't even know what Tai Chi is necessarily. But I sort of feel sometimes like they're looking for a sort of connection or experience or some sort of like, guru like figure, that they can, offer them some sort of like something. I mean, do you see that at all?
Oh yeah, I've had people walk in and we'll do some moves and we'll demonstrate things, and some people have actually said, oh, it's really nice to meet a master. And I say, there aren't any masters in here. And it's amazing to see their crestfallen. They expect a master, but that's an overused term in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's I think I use it for my teacher. I mean, I don't like call like a master. I don't call him master like Master Alex, but referring to him, I refer to him as Master Alex Dong. Just I think it kind of is um commensurate with I guess the station or whatever. But
Yeah, sure.
it's not like a that and $5 will get you a cup of coffee for the most part, right?
Yeah, that's true.
You know, um, but I mean, I do, like I respect the skill that he's put into it, and he's developed some innovations in it. So I think at that point, it's like okay, well, it's sort of commensurate there. But I think a lot of people are like you're saying, they just want to kind of um, hop to a title at a certain point, just to I don't know, maybe just lend to the saleability or marketability of their art. I don't know.
When I first started in Chin style, my first teacher was Jim Krishamanya. I met him in Rockford, Illinois, after I was steered toward him by an online group back in the early days of the internet. And I met him. I said, "What do I call you?" I expected, Sifu or Sensei. Or he said, "Call me Jim."
Uh,
And that was so refreshing. So from that day on, my students come in, call me Ken, not Sifu.
Yeah, that's oh yeah, that's actually like in like the day-to-day class with him too. It's more like 'cause a lot of the students kind of grew up with him. They were going to his father's classes, and so they saw him as a kid coming up and learning. So he was just Alex, and then all of a sudden he's the teacher now. It's okay. Well, I guess it's Sifu or it's just Alex, or whichever way. So it
Yeah,
just kind of depends. And I think too that like a lot of times we kind of as humans, we sort of crave protocol in a lot of ways. And so we kind of just want that, especially as, like, white Westerners with no real, sort of cultural values or cultural, I don't even know what the words are for. We don't really have like any sort of like, once you step away from like the sort of predominant, like, waspy, default, there's not really a whole lot for folks out there. I think that
yeah.
that might um, be looking for in the Chinese.
And I think some of us in the early days, we were conditioned, this is the sensei, this is the Sifu, this is the master so and so, and and so that's part of the culture. And then there comes a point in some schools, and I don't mind people calling themselves master. I trained with a little bit. I practiced with Chen Xiao Wang, Chen Xiao Xing. They are masters. Their sons, after studying in their 40s now, I would say they should be masters by now. I don't have any problem calling them master. Now, a few sometimes I see some people I consider my level or equivalent, and they call themselves master, and I start thinking, well, all right, go ahead, knock yourself out.
Well, you have your reward, is this they might say. Right?
Yeah.
You got your little certificate on the wall that says master. It's like, all right, good for you. Yeah, that's good.
I'll tell you, that's a lot of pressure. If you call yourself a master or use that title, you can't be imperfect.
Yeah,
You can't have a student knock you around if my students knock me around. I want them to knock me around. I can't learn if they don't. And So if I'm suddenly master, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it does sort of distance you from them a bit, and that's sort of, I guess, the one of the balances you have to strike too is like where, where is that balance with the student where you're able to be authoritative, have enough distance where you have authority, but where you're not so authoritative to where like you're putting down this, they're making up stories about, yeah, you looked at this guy and he fell out, uh, where is that? How do you strike that balance with your students,
Yeah. Uh, you just be real. Just
Yeah.
I appreciate real world Tai Chi, Jing, Bagua, any art that I do. I like to invite people from other arts in. And one of the things I like to do is say, take me down, take me down. And then I try to use Tai Chi to take them down instead when they least expect it. But
Yeah.
so, but I am taken down. So that's all right. That's how I learn.
And that's actually very admirable that like you would, assume in front of your students, like let somebody from
Oh,
another
yeah,
school come in and take you down, you
sure.
know, because that's like, I think that when you get into the sport game type martial arts, that's just a part of the culture that, you're going to exchange with people. And, it's not about like who is the best, or who is just a superior person or whatever. It's just, who is the best right then, and so it's less pressure on, okay, well, this guy beat me, so now he's going to take all my students, which is kind of like, I guess, the wushu legend version that we get from watching these movies and stuff, right?
We had a
Uh,
friend come in a few months ago. And he was my student in the 90s, and now he's into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so that was fun. Said, okay, take us down, see what you can do against the old man here. And he did, but I was able to use some of the energies and methods to hold him off a bit.
oh yeah,
He,
yeah. I mean, it's just at a certain point, like you're just, you know, what can you do, right? You're just
yeah,
old, right?
I'm, yeah,
Well, I'm not saying you're old. I'm saying it's a matter of like, we just get older and we're just, the muscles just acquire, they don't work the way they used to.
well, I'm
And
71 and I lost a lung 15 years ago and I've got AFib
oh
and
wow,
we just keep going, but because we love it. And so,
yeah.
yeah, I'm not physically half the man I was 16 years ago, but I'm still having fun.
Oh yeah, that's the important part too. And I think there's a line, yeah, it just came up. It's some Chinese story about he's talking to some old guy who's being called back up into war after retirement or something, and he's old, and they're like, "Oh, are you sure you're going to be able to fight?" He's like, "Well, I may be old, but the horse is not old, and even if the horse is old, the sword is not old, And so while he's out there, that actually like this other stuff, sort of like the man extender, if you watched Barbie, sort of as an equalizer, I guess, for our weakness and our age and whatnot. When we get to like the true martial, you know, versus like, you know, um, games, I suppose.
Mhm.
Something like that, um,
Yeah,
we're yeah. Anyhow, that kind of just off talking on my own here. So you fell in love with the whole Bruce Lee thing? That's really is a bit. I was born in '76, so I kind of came in at the '80s. It was like, oh, what's all this kung fu stuff? But I
yeah.
guess what was that like for you then?
In 72, the Kung Fu TV show started. And so I started watching that for the fight scenes, but I really became interested in the philosophy. And but the fight scenes, of course, at 19 years old, they just won me over. Never seen anything like it, really. I'd watched Bruce Lee on the Green Hornet back in the 60s, but I didn't have a connection really with Kung Fu or anything I wanted to do later. Um, so the TV show kind of set it all up, and then Bruce Lee hit, and I'd never seen anything like it. I defended myself against bullies a lot growing up, and I was always good at it. I always tried to avoid the fight, but when it started, I really enjoyed it. Um,
Yeah.
and when Bruce happened, I thought, my God, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Enter the Dragon came out. a month after he died. And I was heartbroken watching the movie, thinking, how could this guy be dead? But that's when I decided, a month later, I started my first lesson after I saw Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, that's amazing, kind of because like, like us now, like if you get a teenager and you play them the Beatles and like, okay, well, big deal, right? But the same kind of thing with like Bruce Lee. It's like, okay, Bruce Lee, okay, yeah, we get it. Bruce Lee was cool, right? He's everywhere, but to like be there as this kind of like breaks in the culture is got to be a much different experience, I imagine.
The first time I saw Bruce Lee, my buddy and I snuck into a drive-in and we watched The Chinese Connection. And we're laughing our butts off saying that this is a really bad movie, but man, this guy is really good. And then before we knew it, Enter the Dragon was coming out and it was a whole new thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then the Shaw Brothers were out, man. That was where I was like on the weekends. They just had the Shaw Brothers stuff on the Five Deadly Venoms and
Five
all that
Fingers
kind
of
of
Death,
stuff.
Baby.
Five Fingers of Death. Oh yeah, yeah. That's where like I just love that stuff. I can never afford kung fu lessons, so yeah, sorry, Dad, if the ninjas got you, you just would have just been, unavenged. I guess how to tell them. But
So yeah, it was a good time, but we didn't know what we were doing. And you go to a class and the teacher says, here is a low block, here is a punch, practice with your partner, and he walks away while you're with someone who doesn't know what he's doing. But it was good. It was fascinating to me. I had no idea that in 1973 I'd still be so involved all these 51 years later.
one second, I gotta let these mutts.
Oh yeah, let the dog.
They're making some demands here. Come on, guys. You need to go too? All right. So like on your early classes, like what were the classes like when you first started going? I mean, was it I mean, because like the Tai Chi classes sort of mostly have a certain format to them, like the traditional ones. I hear some are just kind of let's show up and just vibe or whatever, but
There was a curriculum. I've still got some of it around here on my bookshelves. You learned a low block and a high block and a punch and kicks and the stepping, and you just start working on that. And it was a kind of a bastardized version. I think in the end, it came out that a lot of the stuff was just kind of made up based on other things. So, but
yeah.
it was all right. And
I think some folks have actually gotten some skill out of following that method anyhow. Like if you just
yeah,
do the basics, you drill the basics enough, you're gonna get something out of it. I think is the you
and I
know
would go back to my dorm room. I went to Eastern Kentucky University, and I would go up and down the dorm room floor around the floor, kicking and punching, and not in an obnoxious way. I waited till people weren't there, but I practiced an hour a day. I was really excited about it.
yeah. That's great. I mean, well, I guess I did have some like boxing training, a little bit of boxing training, just did backyard boxing. A friend of mine's brother was a boxer, and so we would just go over it and give us some training and play around with the gloves and whatnot. But the Chinese stuff I didn't really get into until like my 30s, I think, 20s, 30s. Yeah, I guess 20s, late 20s, mid 20s. Yeah.
I went to Columbus, Ohio in 1976 to a tournament, and we weren't allowed to go to outside tournaments, which is a big red flag to begin with.
Hmm.
And when I went up there, I saw Kung Fu that just blew me away. I mean, this was the heyday in 1976. And I decided at that time to expand my horizons. So I studied Taekwondo a while and had a teacher that suddenly vanished and left town with everybody's contract money. It's just one thing after another. So
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess corruption's gone hand in hand with kung fu since the beginning. If you look at it historically, well, what you gonna do, right? Well,
yeah,
because you have something that's a cult by nature. That's that you have to trust somebody to guide you to it, right? Then that trust is an area where there's a lot of room for exploitation, I suppose.
yeah.
Until you get to a certain point of discernment. Uh,
I have
so
very little patience these days with guys like that, though, just be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. You be honest that you get it from where you got it from, you made it up. All right, good.
Yeah,
Good,
yeah.
good job. And I don't know. There's just there's some, but you gotta look at it too. Like everybody else's Tai Chi sucks, right? It's
Not the way we do it.
yeah, exactly. But we just see some weird stuff sometimes. Like, well, okay, maybe they made it up, or maybe just kind of that's how it got to them. Like again, it kind of take for granted um, how things were. I mean, some of these books that now we have these days weren't even like they're like I know like Chris was talking about the 1920s books that they came out like the manuals to teach people,
Hmm.
like that Chen wrote and whatnot. And then in the 90s they actually found these other set of manuals that the Wu family and the Yang family had like secret that they didn't show anybody, like more private manuals. And so like that material wasn't even available until relatively recently. So it's interesting. Just to see sort of like the public information about the art, how that's even changed over the years, even like within the time that I've been practicing it, which hasn't been that long comparatively.
Yeah, and the in style that I focus on now, Chen style, people didn't even meet them until the 80s or 90s. They didn't come to this country until the 90s. And I was online with, I don't know if you've heard of Mike Sigmund,
No.
but he was in 1997, he had an online listserv with some other guys, and they were using terms. Uh, I won a gold medal in Tai Chi at the 1990 AAU championships, and they were using terms I'd never heard, you know, ground path and pung and this and that. And uh, so I credit these guys for kind of looking beneath the hood and putting the information out there that made others go, wait a second, I'm not getting the real deal here, I don't think. And then you just keep looking until you find it or try to.
Yeah, I think that the traditional method, pedagogy, whatever you want to call it, like you just don't ask questions. You just, okay, this is what Sifu tells you to do that. You do what Sifu says, and then
Yeah.
okay, Sifu tells you when you're better, right? There's no shortcuts. There's no figuring out how and why and like what's supposed to do. Like, and when Sifu tells you that, then you get it. But it seems like that. I don't know if that's necessarily accurate because obviously people are out there, making innovations.
I think some Americans are a little better at that. The two American Chen teachers I had back in around starting in 1998, they really tried to explain it. They didn't rely on the pomposity or the obscure words or abstract. And I really appreciated that. And that's why I started trying to break it up into component body mechanics so that the way I teach it, I really try to break it down into beginning 6 key body mechanics you should know to start working on quality Tai Chi. And I really appreciated that their ability to, one of my first teacher, I mentioned him, but he said, I'm just a hobbyist. And he was pretty good in my opinion. And but he was honest about it. You can't compare me to someone in China who grows up with it and is working 6, 8 hours a day on it. It's different.
Yeah. Yeah, they get home from school. It's like, all right, you gotta do Tai Chi for 4 hours before you can play.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, no, we're done with work. Now we want to go play by doing Tai Chi. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember the story that Chen Wang used to get on his brother, Xiaoxing. He'd say, did you practice today? And Xiaoxing would, no, I didn't practice today. And you say, you've got a family reputation to uphold. So after a while, Xiaoxing started practicing more and became pretty well known.
Yeah. Well, the first generation of or second, I guess second generation of Yang family, like the kids there, right? They one tried to kill himself and the other one ran away, or and I guess another one died. I'm not quite sure how the third one died, but I think it was unrelated to Tai Chi. But just from this allegedly the intensity that that Yang Lu Chen drove them with to train, they were like, I'm out, dude. They just try to kill themselves.
Yeah.
It's been a little better over the years. So well, yeah, Yang to Chen. That's an interesting transition.
Um, yeah, when I met my first, Chin teacher, it took me 1 hour and I realized I've got to start over. I mean, everything I learned was empty. There were no, there was no real body mechanics to it. And, we cultivated chi and we moved and did these things and did the Yang 24 a lot and other forms that he partially designed, but it's it was a different ball game. Um,
Hmm.
the mechanics are so intricate and detailed if you in that style. And but even within Chen style, there are different people who do it in different degrees, and so you can look for what you're looking for and not find it over here, but over here you will. And I tried to be much less critical than I used to be. I'm getting older. I try to be a little bit more, okay, that's not the way I think it should be done, but hey, go for it. But there are certain principles that I just wish the Tai Chi community could get itself together enough to have some basics that everybody might follow, but they don't. And that's true in any system, in any family.
Yeah. Well, I know what I've seen of your teaching too, that it's Chen style, but I think there's a lot, I don't know, maybe it's about like how certain people get what Chen style is and what Yang style is, and but that I see that like in your teaching, I see it a lot more like the Yang style and the Dong style that I know than as opposed to like some other people's Chen style, for example. You know,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
interesting. Now I would say my chin style is, yeah, it, it's all relative. My teacher makes me look like a beginner. I've been at it a while, but I'm still trying to emulate this dragon body that I've been studying for about 4 years with Nabil Rane. He's a disciple of Chen Yu, and the body mechanics are just fascinating to me. It's the dragon body, the serpent body,
Yeah.
and
So what does that mean to you?
it means the foldings and the openings and the closings, and throughout the body, the connected movement and the spiraling and the closing. It's hard. You can't talk about it really.
Yeah. So let's see if what words you would put to it.
Yeah, but it's an alive dragon type of. If you think of a dragon going through the air, that's the way your body's moving inside. Um, that's the goal anyway, and so I'm pursuing it.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about Tai Chi. You can be in it for a long time and still learn new things and develop new skills.
Well, I think that our bodies change as through the practice, and so that sort of reveals new things to us and enables new um, plateaus or new areas to explore.
Yeah, you got to have someone though who can tell you exactly, kind of point the way at what what you should. Your body isn't naturally going to do some of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, true. Well, I mean, it's I guess what I mean to say is that as you're with the teacher, of course,
Yeah,
that like let's say like Simone Biles, right? You
yeah,
know that she's gonna do something where she does a backflip and turns and then does two somersaults and then does a twist and lands, right? Okay, well, like until she like builds up the strength to get that first backflip, there's no way she's gonna be able to do the backflip and then the other somersault, right?
that's
So
right.
like, and so her body's got to change to the point where she can get to that first hurdle, and then she can do the other skills, is what I mean to say. That like sort of the progressive nature of the art opens up new avenues of expression and new understanding. I guess one thing that Alex says is 'cause I like to talk theory, and he's like, like less theory, more practice, right? That
Yeah.
the arts, it's simple, but the practice is deep, is what he said. So
Yeah.
um, you know, and I don't know, I consider like a transformation. And how would you, I mean, I guess when you've been doing it for as long as you've been doing it longer than I've been alive, right? Doing this cultivation. So it's kind of hard to say, like, someone like me who I came to these sort of arts late, from like a life of, I don't know, spoilage, wastage, what was the word, the dissipation, which I've kept up pretty good at that too, with it. But coming at it late and being able to see just like the drastic change in my own body through the practice, as opposed to somebody who came to it much earlier and just kind of been doing this along the way. I mean,
Yeah.
how would you gauge your changes over the years?
Um, I was an incredibly strong guy. My dad died at 61, his dad at 69. And so in my late 50s, I developed AFib. And I was just a very strong person at that time. My legs were like tree trunks, it seemed like. Um, but because of the training I'd had, I believe it helped me get through when doctors tried to kill me they they tried to stent my pulmonary vein. It was closing because of an AFib procedure that went wrong. So they tried to stent the vein. They ripped the vein out and pierced my heart with the wire. And so from that time, I've had one lung that I've dealt with. And because of the condition I was in and the strength and the mindset, I survived. And I was in the hospital bed in Cleveland Clinic for over a week on a ventilator. And I was thinking about a tournament that was coming up in 6 months that I wanted to compete in. And I ended up competing in it and won first in forms, but second in weapons. So but I was breathing like a freight train too, with one lung, trying to deal with that issue. But these arts, they change your body. You know, if you're, and Shen is a little bit different. I think maybe a little bit more eating bitter in Chen style. Um, I've I've done workshops where people of different styles have come in, and we'll get into a posture, and I'll say, okay, this is what you do. You get into this quad and you close into this leg, and their legs are giving out in 30 seconds or a minute. And I'm a lot older than them and sitting there going, okay, well, yeah, I can see it. It takes a little bit of doing that to build that strength. And just
Oh
things
yeah.
like standing stake and just doing the forms.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's I wouldn't. I think that just because of the way that Yang was popularized, particularly in the States, that's sort of accurate culturally as far as how it's practiced and presented to a lot of people. You know that they're talking, the old ladies at the YMCA just, having a social thing or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So but I think that when you get into the people who are doing it like your Chris Marshall,
Oh yeah.
Yang, and like even the Adam Misner, the Yang stuff, and um even like the elder Dong family people, not necessarily everybody who comes to class, but like Dongzhen Chen, when he, first workshop I went to, he was, saying, uh, that nobody here could actually, hang with his workout, right? Like he's just doing his workshop workout for us,
Oh, I
but like
believe
his,
that.
but
Yeah.
like his real workout, like we were just wouldn't be on there. But and so I think that what you're saying is true, that like it's there in Yang, but like a lot of people that just culturally it because I think Chen came from a different place when it came over. It's just like you're saying, they didn't come out into the 80s and they already had something to kind of prove. And it just, but if you look at, like, there's that recent book that came out, Stages of Learning Tai Chi. And I don't know if you've had time to delve into that.
No, I haven't even heard about it.
Oh, it's well, they didn't just come out. it just got translated on the Brennan website,
Oh, okay.
right? But so I mean, basically, it just came out to the English speaking Tai Chi world, and you can see people talking about it all over the place, right? But it's I can't remember who wrote it. I think it's a Chen guy. Actually, a Chen guy wrote it, but he compares the main styles at the time and the similarities and the differences. And I think that when I look at what you're doing and I look at what I'm doing, that it looks a lot like what he's describing in that we kind of got from that point, 20 something, 1920 something, there was this divergence with Yang Cheng Fu and Chen Menqing, and then, Chen Wei Ming and all those guys doing their thing, to kind of ride off of Yang Cheng Fu's coattails, right? And that sort of established the sort of modern idea of what Yang style is that's out there. But at the same time, you have the Chen people doing their thing. I'm kind of going, but yeah, what do you think about all that?
I lost the question.
I don't know either. Well, I guess what I was trying to get is that, like, I think that, a lot of the modern, Chen is this and Yang is this is just that it's sort of like it's straying from the root, I guess. That there's a lot stronger root even among the family divisions than that we really give credit to in the modern conversation.
And I think a lot of it involves the teachers. There are some teachers who I think, Chris Marshall's one. I don't know him well, but what I've seen and talked of him, I think didn't you do the video with him, the push hands in the park?
I did one. I did one with him. Yeah, we were doing
Yeah,
a real light one.
that
Yeah,
was
but he was,
cool. I
yeah.
like that. Um, but yeah, I think there are people who really approach it in a serious way, Marshall way, and that's wonderful. Um, and I've taught classes where most of the students were older, and they were not there for martial purposes. And it was a lot of fun, and I made wonderful friends. So, you can do one without having to do the other. Um, so yeah, but I think in the end, at its core, Tai Chi is a martial art that weaved in the cultural, traditional Chinese medicine theories and yin and yang and Taoism into the art. But at its core, I like Tai Chi because you learn the body mechanics that give you the relaxed power to break someone and put them on the ground before they do that to you. And you control their center, which to me is the most fascinating part of it all. When someone comes and puts their hands on you, that's when Tai Chi really works. Not when they're standing a few feet away. That's when I'll use Xing Yi. But when they have their hands on me, okay, then that's the test. How do you deal with that force, and how do you control their center and keep them from finding yours?
Yeah, it's good stuff on there. So when you say martial art, how do you define a martial art then?
Uh, you hit someone, they fall down. Well, that's a good question. I mean, I've practiced boxing and other things, and uh, the using the mechanics and the movements. I mean, these movements are amazing. Tai Chi, they're everywhere the hands are, everywhere the body is, there's a fighting application. And so unlocking those is one of my loves in the arts. I just love to unlock these movements. Okay, I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Okay, what is this? Is it an elbow strike? Am I
Yeah.
doing a shoulder lock on this guy? It's all of the above. It depends on what
Yeah.
position.
Well, I guess what I'm asking in that sense is like, you know, maybe I'm leading a little bit, but uh,
You're leading the witness.
so there's this the boxing classic, right? Which is General Chi Ji Jong or whatever. I can't remember his name, but this old general who was organizing the armies and was training these peasants to fight the Japanese pirates that were coming and raiding the coast, right? And so it was the first time he had, like, in China, that they had, like, taken and written down all the history. I mean, there was other like books from like monasteries and whatnot. But it was like the first time he collected like all the martial knowledge in one place to share it and, you know, train his troops with. And they had like the Mandarin Duck formation and whatnot is one of the things that came out of it. So it's a huge catalog of weapons and tactics and all this kind of stuff, blah, 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 blah. So anyhow, last chapter of the book is the boxing classic about empty hand stuff. And he says like, you know, this isn't really good for war. It's got no place on the battlefield, but it's good for making you strong. And you know, regular people can do it to make themselves stronger. And so that's why I include it, and it's good. And then he goes and he like includes like I think there's like 37 classic postures, you know, like single whip and repulse monkey and all that kind of stuff is in there, right? And
Yeah.
so it kind of comes out of so like my thinking on this to you know sum up on this whole thing is that really when you talk about like martial art, right, and you look at like okay, martial being war fighting, right, combat, self-defense, things that matter, okay, you know, it's not about okay, here's a fair fight, here's rules, here's somebody who's gonna you know pick you up if you fall down. It's okay, there's nobody out there to protect you. There's somebody who wants to you know kill you and there's nothing stopping him but what you can do. Oh, by the way, they're bigger than you and faster than you and stronger than you and smarter than you. What are you going to do? Right? And so like I think that that's like when I talk about a martial art that I want to have something that's going to prepare me for that or prepare, you know, as a student, you know, my student for that versus, you know, that's going to prepare my student to go meet with somebody with equal training and equal size with a supervisor and, you know, have a consensual experience.
You know, my philosophy is, you know, when I started in martial arts, I thought, I
Yeah.
want to learn to defend myself better. But I was 20. I hadn't been in a fight since 2 years before that, and I confronted a bully who had harassed me for years, and didn't have his friends around. So I said, let's go. And I punched him in the face, and he ran and hid in his car because that's what bullies do if they don't have their strength in numbers. But where was I?
Bullies.
Bullies. And yeah, kind of lost track of where I was going.
Sorry, I think my dogs might have barked and threw everything off. But no, yeah, I was just saying that, you know, I guess you know, fair fights are for suckers
Oh,
is my
fair fight.
mantra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you train for self-defense, and then it kind of becomes ingrained in you. And then you really should develop beyond that frame of mind. Now, I still haven't been in a fight since I was a teenager. I don't expect to be in a fight um, the rest of my life, although I'm prepared for it. And I see your GoPro.
Yeah, I know my camera. I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I just
Um,
my camera like the thing went dead for some reason, so I'm trying to figure that. But keep talking. I'm still here.
yeah.
I'm just gonna
So
plug in.
I know a guy who thinks about self-defense a lot in a different way, and he carries a knife, and he also has concealed carry and carries a gun. And I just don't think that way. Um, I believe a lot of times if someone's really going to attack you on the street or in a store, they're not going to give you a warning. And you just have to be prepared and be aware of what's around you. Several years ago, my wife and I were in downtown Chicago, which I love. I love Chicago. But we were in the Magnificent Mile getting ready to go shopping in a big high-rise mall. And as we walked down the sidewalk, it got a little more crowded and a little louder, and a lot of young people, and they were laughing and talking loud. And I thought, oh, this is cool. But as we went, it got a little more crowded, and we went in this mall, and they were a little louder. And I thought, the self-defense alarm went off, and I said, let's go back. And my wife, I said, my self-defense alarm went off, and Nancy is very perceptive. She said, I trust you. Let's go. That night on the news, right where we were, within a few minutes, these teens had organized something on social media. They started running through the crowd, hitting people at random. And the police were called downtown, and it was the lead story on the news on the Chicago stations, where they just rioted. And I was aware enough that something was off. And rather than, you know, what am I going to do? Stand there and fight a bunch of young guys? No, we went the other way and got out of the line of fire. So self-defense is one thing, but being aware is another important thing to develop. I might be able to hit somebody before they can hardly make a move toward me, but why do I want to do that? You develop the skill to do that, and then that should not be your main focus.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, if you're me for like trying to, well, even the Tai Chi classics, it says be evasive, avoid conflict, right?
Yeah.
We're the idea, it tactically, no force on force, but just in general, avoid the conflict. Just
Lead them into emptiness.
Yeah. If you sense something, the energy of it coming up, what would you say? The self-defense alarm that you said. What was that all about? Let's
Awareness.
Awareness, yeah.
Just being connected and being aware of who's around you, what's around you, and
But were you aware? I mean, you weren't really aware of a particular thing, right?
No, I was just aware of a sense I got that something wasn't right.
Okay. Maybe like the kids walking past had like a strange vibe to them that was kind of like rubbing you the right way, or
I think they were laughing a little too loud a certain way, or a little too many people, and I thought it just doesn't feel right. And I rarely feel that way because I'm rarely in a situation like that. But I was really glad that day that feeling arose, and we were both amazed watching the news that night. So we were right there.
Yeah, we like people start talking about like metaphysical type stuff and like, oh, spooky or woo woo and whatnot. But if we, I say too, like, I don't believe that there's anything that departs from physics and biology and anatomy, but I think that there's a lot more to that than we necessarily understand. And that, like, if you're,
Yeah, but I think that's one thing Tai Chi and Qigong can help you with. If when I do Qigong, starting back in '87, I wanted to connect um, not only with myself but with others, and you just become aware and you become part of it. Uh, that feeling of connection, you try to then carry that through your day and in every interaction, everyone you meet, um, and so you can develop an awareness rather than walking around with your head on a phone or your mind spaced out. It's a mindfulness and just being aware of what's happening around you now. I think Tai Chi and especially Qigong can help you. I see Tai Chi and Qigong as separate. I don't have the same goal when I do Tai Chi as I do when I'm doing Qigong. Tai Chi is for me the body mechanics and the relaxed power and the martial intent. Qigong to me is about the connection and awareness and being in touch through the body, mental and physical relaxation.
sorry, I am hearing you.
Sorry.
The dogs are like, they're idiots. Every single podcast, they've got to like be idiots. So right
Bring them
now,
on. Have their own podcast.
I'm telling you, I'm gonna give them their own show. Yeah, freaking frack here. But yeah, I think you're, because I think that Qigong, I mean, Qigong's a really broad term,
Yeah.
right? Qi
Yeah.
is a broad term and Gong is a broad term. So Qigong, it's like and like, we've got a particular Qigong that we do to work on Tai Chi skills, but it's it's different. Like, it's like, this is not Tai Chi. You don't do this in Tai Chi. You do this in the Qigong. You know what I mean? And then that actually supports it. Almost like, jumping rope isn't boxing, right? But
But it helps.
it helps, right? It does help, right? Um, but yeah, that's an interesting thing too, because like it depends on the qigong, I think too, because there's different, there's like hard qigong and soft qigong, and some that's just kind of sitting there thinking,
Sure. I'm a
you
pretty simple person when it comes to Qigong. I use it for specific reasons. I don't believe in a lot of the theories behind it. But I do believe that it has tremendous benefit if you learn to manage stress, calm your mind, calm your body, and connect. Um, I think it's truly beneficial. And I don't think you need to, if you get the benefits from it, you don't need to believe too deeply in some of the things that don't quite match up with our science and culture.
know. Yeah, I think
You know,
it gets kind of tricky in there, like, when we start talking about, like, chi and like what that might mean.
it does.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Everybody has a different opinion.
now,
But, I was at a workshop with Chen Wang, and he said, you don't have to believe in Qi to do good Tai Chi. And I thought, well, that's refreshing to hear. If you do the mechanics, if you have the intent, if you have the flow, the Qi is there, whether you believe it or not. I don't have to believe in the sun for the sun to shine in the
sure,
morning.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's even like when they talk about, like, methods of like using the chi, it's not, you don't use it directly, right? It's done through the intention and the movement and the
Yeah.
intention of the movement that you're doing, and that causes the chi to do what it's going to do. So it's not like you're trying to say, like you're saying, like, if you do the movement correctly, then the chi is just going to follow, if
Yeah, it's easy
according to the theory. Yeah.
to demonstrate Qi flow. I like to have, when new students come in, they ask about something like that, and I'll say, okay, I'm putting my arm right here, push on me. And, of course I say, okay, that's no Qi. Now, now push on my arm. And you connect it and have the structure and the ground and the pung, and okay, hey, instant Qi flow.
Yeah.
Physically, you can demonstrate it without
Yeah.
going into a lot of the theory.
And I think that's really, more what I think the word means in the original sense, like as far as for, energy in an engineering sense, how the how incoming force is going to flow through a structure or a machine and be routed and used and transformed by the mechanics of that machine. Right.
Yeah.
It's like that, but that, like, not having that particular framework, they, use chi as a word for it, but that chi, that can refer to many different physical qualities. And, I think there's a tendency to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater
Mm.
that I'm sort of resisting, to the much chagrin of some people, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
But no,
people can believe anything they want. I'll try to use it as well as I can as far as my practice, and that's that's all right. I'm trying to be a lot better about that, which I got a kick out of listening to you talk about the Fajin project, because I've been a member of that for, God, a long time, 10 years maybe. I don't know how
yeah,
long it's been around, but yeah, the Chi business, everything everybody's got a different opinion, and has a different level of tolerance for that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. It's a, but I mean, there's definitely, I don't know, because I hear people talk about various things, and like not everybody has the same kind of mind, right? And you're Chinese or English or whatever, like, just because you're from a certain background doesn't necessarily mean that you're, like, just because, I'm from the United States doesn't mean that I understand, I don't know, predatory capitalism any better than anybody else. I don't know what do we do? I don't know. I don't even know what the hell we do.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like that, like when it comes to like analyzing systems and thoughts and like things of that nature, I think that I don't know, not everybody has to get into the nitty-gritty of what is being taught, especially if you're doing things, but they really, there's a lot of good material, and like, okay, switch up. show me id, show me ego, show me super ego, prove it exists, right? Show me with your
I'll,
experiments that there's ego.
I'll show you ego. I'm a master.
Oh
There
yeah,
you
that's
go.
cheap. But you know what I mean? Like it's just like we start talking about conceptual stuff, and we know like even like, the first thing we get shown in school about atoms, right? The Bohr model, right? Like, a couple years later, like, no, that's bullshit. That's completely we just taught you that because you were a kid. But it's just, I don't know where I'm going with that. Um, but we were saying
Hey,
earlier about the cell phone thing. Now that's something that like my God, like when you start getting a little bit of awareness in the world, not the cell phones. I don't want to call it cell phones, call it my cell phone, but we start getting a little bit of awareness in the world. Um, I was a kid who would walk through the school hall with a book reading, right, as I walked through the hallway. And like I learned now is that that's a form of dissociation, right?
mm,
That like kids that read a lot, they're dissociating from their environment because of their, whatever reason. And so, but like looking around the world around us, like I don't know how you see people. I kind of see people as like largely dissociated. I don't know how you would describe that.
well, I would have walked through the hallway reading a Captain America comic book,
Yeah.
uh, Avengers back in the 60s. But yeah, I think people are in a way trained to be a little bit too self-centered, self-aware, or self-absorbed. And so dissociation is a little bit seeing ourselves as separate. But I believe that's part of the connection of that you can work on. Um, Even practice people don't like too much. They think it's kind of woo-woo, but Zen Buddhism is it's not a religion. It's more of a philosophy,
Hmm.
uh, like philosophical Taoism. And you can try to train yourself and instruct yourself on how to connect and be a better person and be part of the world a little bit better. I think that's very important to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you so yeah, you've been teaching for quite some time. I mean, has there ever, outside of like other teachers messing up, like has there been like a student that's really caused a lot of problems for you?
Not really. I've had a couple of people who join and back when I was doing a lot more sparring before I lost the lung, people would come in like they look like hired guns and they'd want to, do a little test. And they were never happy at the result, but I was never one to, and I believe you made this comment on a program. I don't want to hurt anyone, and I don't want to be hurt. You don't have to do that to learn martial arts. You don't have to hurt people, and you
No.
don't have to be injured. Um, I had a student who was 16 years old, nicest kid in the world, and we would practice the chin knot. And someone grab you by the wrist, you roll over it, you spiral, you do an elbow. Well, his drunk stepfather came in one night, grabbed him by the shirt, reared back to punch him, and instinctively he went boom and broke the guy's elbow.
Nice.
A simple, and when I first heard about it, I thought, oh, such a good kid. I hate for him to hurt somebody. But on the other hand, he had to go to the hospital. The stepfather had surgery, never bothered him again.
I guess not,
So these little things work. It's part of the martial art, but yeah, we get off on tangents in here. I forget what line we're on. It's
That's okay. That's all good.
we're
That's the
telling
whole thing.
stories.
My mind is an untethered mule, It's a
Some people say this stuff doesn't work. I think Zhu Jiadong in China did a great service to the world of Tai Chi when he beat up that guy uh, who claimed to be a Tai Chi master. Um, I think we can fool ourselves into thinking we're doing something that we're not. And I think it's good to pressure test your arts. And if you're into the martial aspects, if you're not, that's fine. But if you are, you really ought to test it a little bit in a realistic way without anybody being hurt. Because if you practice well enough, and often enough and have it ingrained in your mind and your body how to react, you can react if you decide to do it. We are trained to be very polite in this society. So if someone comes up giving us a hard time or threatening us, we think, if I don't do anything, I won't make him mad. If I don't do this, he won't do that. And I was surrounded once with a cousin by a group of boys. I was about 15, and one of them had a stick, the loudest talker, and there were about 5 others around us. And he was threatening me with a stick. And I said, okay, I can get that stick out of his hands. And before he could hit me with it, it was out of his hands and they ran screaming. And I've thought about that a lot when it comes to martial arts, because can you do what you need to do when you need to do it? And that's something we really have to train our minds for, no matter what art we're studying. It's one thing to practice roll back, press, push, but how do you use that? And can you use it in the right situation? But will you have the mental determination to say at the right time, I need to take action that I normally wouldn't want to take?
Yeah. I really liked it that story about the kid.
Yeah,
That hits the heart of what I like to talk about. And like, asymmetrical, non-consensual violence,
yeah,
with nobody there backing them up, and nothing but, okay, well, there's a drunk idiot about to just, who knows, right? That kid could wind up dead and in a hospital, whatever, and instead it went the other way because he had that little bit of training,
and that kid is now the one who's into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and came to our class, and I said, okay, take me down.
Nice, nice, nice.
Yeah, in
And
his 40s.
And I think that, like, a lot of people, I think one of the criticisms I have too with like MMA type approaches to self-defense is that they get too much confidence in their self-defense skills. Do you agree with that?
I think I really, if I was young enough, I'd be training MMA probably a little bit,
Uh,
at least to check it out. Um, at this age, that ship has sailed. Um, but I think that any time you're going to go to the ground, you better not have any of the guy's buddies around, because if you go to the ground, you may get a kick in the head from a friend. So the ground fighting, everything has its limitations. Standing up fighting does, um, ground fighting does. You just have to be aware of the right situation at the right time and try not to be in that situation to begin with.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's the thing. I think that I guess what I mean in that too is that, like, when we get really confident about it, like I'm confident about my ability to survive a street fight. Okay, well then that's going to make me less likely to avoid it. If a situation comes up, like, oh, now's a chance for me to show off my skills, and that might be a chance for the other guy to show off his knife tricks,
yeah.
and you don't even know that till the end.
And if
Um,
you adopt the attitude like a lot of these, and you see it online, you see it, you can post a really nice technique in Tai Chi and a good application that really works, and you'll get, that'll never work on the street, or that won't work in the ring. Well, I'm not practicing for the ring.
yeah, right.
And to get into that mentality is really counterproductive and very negative, in my opinion. Uh,
Yeah.
if you really think you're going to get into the ring, how many people who are in martial arts worldwide would be able to step into a ring now against a trained, qualified fighter?
Hmm.
Someone who's trained and ready to go. I did the Tough Man contest in 1991, where it was mostly boxing, and everybody in town, all the tough guys came out and they paired them off, and we went at it. And I fought a guy who was 15 years younger and taller and heavier, and I won the fight, but I've never been as close to death, feeling exhausted after 3 rounds of that, it's brutal.
Oh yeah, yeah. The 3 minute boxing round will wear you out.
So when
It
we
doesn't-
start, yeah, even guys who are into MMA, unless you're really well trained, you
yeah.
better hope that fight ends real quick.
Yeah, yeah, it's a three boxing. That's no joke. I was like, ah, man, that's. I think about the only thing worse is wrestling. That's
Oh yeah,
because because Onassis, he was a high school wrestler. He was on last week. I don't know if you know. Do you know Onassis Perngal? I can't. He's a. I can't. I slaughter his
not
name
sure.
there. Oh, he's in UFC 7, um, like so early UFC, but he's a Tai Chi guy, a Hung Gar guy, and
Oh,
Filipino martial artist, out of Connecticut right now. I interviewed him last week. I don't know, just thinking about that. When I mentioned wrestlers, I just thought about that because we were talking about like this, the physical conditioning that wrestlers get into, and like you look at like the competition level judo, for example, right? Like compared to a clip of Mifune, and like you're looking at Olympic judoka, and it seems like having like a 24th Dan black belt is like just the beginning, and then it's a matter of how much cardio you can get into, right?
the
Like,
Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys getting down like that and wrestling on the mat and grappling, that takes so much out of you. They
yeah.
get in such tremendous condition. I have a lot of respect for them. I would do it if I was younger. Um, it's just a wonderful. I would study all the arts.
Oh yeah. I mean, you just have to pick, you pick where you're gonna put your.
Karate, anything.
Yeah.
Just give it to me. You don't have time. So in 1990, 87, I decided, okay, Tai Chi, Xingyi Bagua, Qigong, I'm good.
You can do a lot worse than that, for sure. For sure. I mean, I'm a fan. Like I did what kind of shingy do you study?
Uh, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I'd say I don't know like exactly the kind I got. I know it's like Wayland Choi, so I call it, Choi,
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's
yeah,
Shanxi, I don't know, Hebei, I don't know.
yeah. Uh,
From my
no,
teacher, Pete Starr, and other places. But I tried to test it. I learned Xingyi and I took the 12 animal form I do to Chicago, and I've won a gold in the Xingyi competition at
oh
a
nice.
big tournament there. So, just try to test it, see do I have quality or not?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I find like the system I studied, he talks about nine joint harmony a lot because it's based more on Leo Bafa, I think.
yeah,
His primary art, and so he like kind of looks at everything from the Leo Bafa
yeah,
perspective. So yeah, I find it really goes hand in hand with the Tai Chi. As far as for just being able to get to a point where I can just like, oh, just issue a lot of energy all of a sudden. It's really excellent. Just that gathering kind of stuff. I don't know.
I have.
Anyhow, speaking of time, it's getting kind of late. It's a 6:15. Time has just flown past. It's been a wonderful hour chatting with you. Anything you want to say before we close out here? Or
Not really. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's
absolutely.
good job.
Well,
You're a
thank you,
nice
sir.
guy. I like to see your stuff online, and I like to see you pop up different places.
All right, man. Well, same here. I like to watch yours. I'm just hoping to make more stuff and get it out there. And your website, internalfightingarts.com.
Yes.
And you've got a Patreon with that, or is that just a?
No, it's a membership site, and I started it in 2008, and I've got about 1,000 videos I've made, lessons on there, and it's about $20 a month. People around the world studying. I have live Zoom classes, and it's a lot of fun.
So $20 a month, you get access to thousands of videos you've already got up. Any new videos you put up as you put them up.
Yeah,
You've
and
got Tai Chi classes live you lead, you got Shingi classes live you lead, and you got Bagua classes live you lead, right?
and I do one-on-ones with members at no cost.
Okay.
you
So there you go, man.
know,
Yeah.
I'm not in it to make a lot of money.
You're not even let anybody else make any money either, are you? No, no, just kidding. No, that's a great deal, man. It's a fantastic opportunity. I think I was watching your uh, silk reeling video earlier, and I was like, oh wow, that's great. And somebody was going on about how great the deal was. I'm like, oh yeah, that is a pretty good deal. So guys, get this deal. It's great. Okay. Well, cool.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, sir, very much for your time and everything. And I'm gonna go get ready and
Folks are content to sit and watch. Some just live to consume what others produce. Some are built different, walking a harder path, fighting against the tide, breaking through that glass. Pre-dawn training, midnight form, low-fat diet, horse stance in the storm, eating bitter, sleeping rough, cannot settle, never enough.